Warning: the five may contain discussions on topics such as death, suicide, rape, addiction, and abuse. Although these topics are approached in a therapeutic manner, they still may have triggering effects on some individuals. Viewer discretion is advised.
Human beings are crafted through experience. Each person, from the closest of friend to the most random of stranger, has a unique story crafted by the ultimate experience that we call life. Welcome to the five. The same five questions, a completely different experience every time.
I met today's guest when I started getting these really weird, thirsty comments on my YouTube channel years ago now. And all my friends were warning me, like, this person is crazy. You should definitely block him. So instead of blocking him, I actually reached out and talked to him. And now he's become probably one of like my best friends. We talk all the time. We know everything about each other's lives and everything like that. And so why don't you introduce yourself? Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Thank you, Brad, for that lovely introduction. You didn't hide anything there, did you? My name's Des. I'm a miner from Western Australia. I like sardine sandwiches, personal connections, and anal. So, I've heard you got some questions for me.
I do. I have 5 questions that I'm going to ask you. So take your time with each one. Just answer honestly, and let's get going. So what's the weirdest thing that's ever happened to you?
The weirdest thing. Well, funny you mention that, because I reckon it might be you weird fucker. So yes, he gave a pretty good introduction to that one, man. I was just moved to a country town, pretty fresh off a breakup. And I was drinking every night because there wasn't a lot to do there. And there's this weird fucker with a weird mustache, very handsome, that was making videos. I think he was humming and whispering, and it was adorable. So I get drunk on every posted a video. I would be like, yeah, I'd fucking hit that or whatever. Like, you can whisper in my ear. I was just, I don't know. Just, yeah, inappropriate stuff looking back at it. And then eventually he messaged me saying, I thought you were crazy. You're kind of cute. And I was like, well, little did he know, you can be both. Trust me. And his friends were definitely right. And then obviously early on we were like, look, nothing's going to come from this. I live in the best country in the world. He lives in America. We'll just, we'll stay friends. And that we did. I've got a tattoo on my foot of a mustache. I've got all different symbols of people that mean a lot to me. Of course, the mustache is Brad's. We've cried together, we've laughed together, we've argued. For those that don't know Brad personally, we can all see he's handsome. It's obvious. Funny, of course. Kind, very. Stubborn. So he's not perfect. Very stubborn. So yes, we argue. But yeah, we've just been through everything. Like, Brad, like, I've gone for job interviews and Brad's made me little funny songs or parodies to make me laugh before I go in there. He gives me lots of advice. He's almost like it's almost like I've made him up in my head. He's got these big muscles and this weird mustache and this accent that I still don't know if it's fake. It's a lot. And he just, he like slaps me, stop drinking, stop fighting, this and that. So it's very weird. We know everything about each other. We've got no secrets. And it's good because he doesn't know anyone I know. So I can talk shit about him to absolutely everyone. So if you're watching this and I know you, I've talked shit about you with this guy. But I also know nothing about you. I don't know how you walk or interact with others. So definitely weird having a fairy godmother with a mustache and big muscles. Next question.
It is weird, but it's been very worth it. Like, we have actually helped through each other through a lot of hard times here, especially like pandemic stuff and everything. Sometimes it is worth it to reach out to the weird stalker guy. You never know how it's going to end up.
100%. Give your stalker a chance.
What's the scariest thing that's ever happened to you?
Do you remember that morning I rang you? And you were like, why do you look so shaken up? And I said, I almost died last night and I think I've lost my job. So I was going through a lot. Back then I used to drive giant haul trucks. They're about 800 ton. I used to drive them up big cliffs, and it was night shifts.
They're the biggest vehicles in the world. Like that's the thing. They're huge. They're unbelievably huge. Like how big are the tires?
3 meters. It's like 20 foot. Yeah, like I can comfortably walk underneath it, and then carry about 400 ton. So anyway, I was driving this big fucker up the cliff, and I had a lot of stresses at the time, so I wasn't sleeping too well. And when you're kind of half dreaming, you have your little micro dreams. So I was driving up the cliff, and keep in mind this cliff would have been 180 meters, which is about 400 feet in the air. And I had a micro sleep, and then because I was half dazed, something fell, and I leant over to pick it up. And when I did, I pushed the steering wheel to my left, and then I felt a bump. And then when I kind of came back to it, all I saw was 400 meters down a rock, and my entire truck just went doo, 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 doo. And it bounced there for about 5 seconds. And because of the weight on the back, it just went and fell back. And I pretty much went into like a state of shock. I had to be carried out of the truck. But the scariest part about that was them making me watch the footage of inside the cab. Because I remember just saying, "No, I've done it," meaning, no, I've died. And they showed me just yanking at my steering wheel, and it's just, yeah, it was terrible. I was shaking in my seat. It was very hard to watch. But it is a lesson learned. I used to be pretty careless back then. But now I know. And the worst part is because they made me go see a psychologist about it. There were all the pictures on the wall of all the people that had died at that mine site, and weirdly enough, they make them take pictures like they were already dead. And it was creepy. And they're like, we're not gonna fire you. We all make mistakes," until they saw the footage that I wasn't wearing a shirt, no seatbelt. I had my speaker, which you're not allowed to have, and they're like, "Yeah, you're done. You've only been doing this for 3 months. You're definitely done." But yeah, it's scary. And everyone proceeded to tell me all the times that they worked with someone that died from falling off a cliff. And I'm like, "Oh, thanks. Needed to hear that." But yeah, definitely scariest. Closest I've been to death, and I've almost died many, many times.
That one is a very dramatic way to die. Like I can picture it in my head. It is very scary. And I still remember that morning. You looked like you were telling a story about somebody else. Like you weren't even in like your right mind, I don't think, still when you were talking. It was kind of like you were telling a story about something that happened to somebody else that was really scary.
It's almost like I was dreaming. Like I don't have good memory about it, because they say when you see death, you go to a dreamlike state. Because I thought I was dead. I was dangling and my thing was going, and I was looking at 200 meters down, and then it just stopped. And instead of hitting the brakes, all I was doing was yanking at my steering wheel, trying to pull 800 ton, which is obviously, you're pretty stupid when you're facing death. But anyway, still alive, unfortunately. There's time yet.
So I guess we can move on. What is the most memorable moment of your life so far?
I think memorable would probably have to be when I moved to Canada. Because I feel like I always want what I can't have. And I get fixated on things that I can't have. And I felt like I didn't, not that I wasn't enjoying life, I just felt like my life could be so much better. Even though I had a high-paying job, lots of friends, just everything I ever wanted, I just feel like I wanted more. But I remember sitting in Canada in a unit with my mattress on the floor after being fired from my second job in 3 weeks, which is another story. We're not going to talk about that. And just thinking, God, I miss home. I miss everything about home. I miss sitting at home, being bored with my family. I miss my job. I miss Australians, because Canadians are boring. I just miss just everything, and it just really made me appreciate my life. Um, Plus, I miss having money. Ah, working mining to being a bartender, and then kind of having to walk because you can't afford an Uber, or when someone says, "Is it your round?" Suddenly you'd be like, "Shit, let me check the account," kind of thing. It just the shit that reminded me when I was 19. So now I'm appreciative of what I have. Kinda. There could be some improvements, but we'll see. Probably that. And coming out. I thought the world was going to turn on me when I came out, but everything was chilled. Everyone was like, no shit. I was like, yeah. Guilty!
Well, I'll say I applaud that. I mean, I still remember when you're talking to me and you're like, "Hey, I work in these like very well-paying jobs in Australia. When you're working in the mine, you're getting paid very well. They're very coveted jobs there." And you're like, "Hey, I got this very high-paying job," because you'd gotten a new job since the accident that we talked about in the last segment.
Yeah, no longer work there for sure.
You no longer work there, but you had another job in the mines. You were doing good and everything like that. And you were like, I think I just want to go on this adventure. I want to move to Canada and see what it's like and travel around. And I'm going to like bartend and I remember being like, really? But I was also like, you know, hey, if this is something that you want to try and you want to do, then I always say I regret the things that I never try. I never regret the things that like I do and then they don't work out. I'm like, okay, now I know better. So but I think if you had not done it, you would still be in that weird, like, wanderlust state you were, where you were just like, there's more out there. And then sometimes when you go out there and you see it, it shows you just how great you have it at home. And that's worth it. That's worth the adventure right there sometimes.
100%. Definitely cost a fair bit of money. But it was a lesson, that's for sure.
But ever since you've come back, you've been much happier with everything that's going on. You seem to be more accepting of all the things that you normally get worked up and are just like, I'm not going to put up with this. I'm going on. You're like, okay, maybe this is how life operates.
Yeah, well, when you've been living with Canadians for 4 months, come back to Australian, come back and deal with Australians, nothing bugs you, trust me. Ugh. Let's continue.
What's the saddest thing that's ever happened to you?
Many sad things, starting with looking in the mirror every morning to losing many, many jobs. But definitely the saddest part was when I was a young pup. I was a flamboyant, loud, obnoxious kid, but in the best way. I was so full of life. Like I always went to private school, and you weren't allowed to bully kids in private school. And then I was like 9, and then I went to public school for the first time. And I don't know if I told you this or not. I think we've kind of touched on it. I was a fucking nightmare, and we went there, and I found out there was no drama, no art classes, and I was like, I'm gonna make my own because I was a fucking nightmare of a kid. So I made a poster, and it was a picture of me. I can't remember the picture. I think I was wearing sunnies, and I was doing some sort of acting pose. And I said, auditions lunchtime to be part of a play. I don't remember what the play was about. I just know I was definitely the main character. And I remember at the end, there was a dying scene of me because, I wanted everyone to be sad that I was dead. And so I thought everyone was going to love me and I was going to change the school. And lunchtime came and I saw all the kids walk up to me and I was like, they're all here for auditions. But I already picked who was getting the parts, all like the cute ones. And then they all started just pegging stuff at me, calling me a faggot. I had to run. They were beating me up, this and that, really badly actually that day. And then the next day, I went home and I was like, what the fuck was that? And it didn't really hit me. First time I ever heard what faggot was. I was like, guilty. And the next day, kind of went in and I was a little bit scared, and just the bullying continued. I called it faggots, and stuff was thrown at me, and eventually, and very quickly, I just completely changed. I went from a kid that used to just love attention, be completely myself, to a quiet, angry kid within a month and a half. Which, look, a little bit of bullying was probably needed, but it was nasty. I just remember every morning, the recess bell would go and I would get nervous, and I'd hopefully quickly sprint to the toilets before anyone could catch me. And I remember the older kids calling me a faggot, and then kind of Googling what a faggot was and going, oh, shit, that makes sense. And just going from like being the happiest kid to the saddest kid that hates themselves so much in a span of 2 months, almost going from non-reality to almost reality very quickly, and it was very, very damaging. But I reckon if I didn't get bored, I'd probably turn out like you, maybe do some ASMR or maybe do something weird, because that is one of like my favorite things about you, is you're fucking bonkers, and you really do not give two shits about what anyone else thinks. I don't know anyone that would have the balls to do, ASMR, or what did you make a fucking humming video once? Like, that's just so weird. But it's cool. Like, you just really don't care. Like, sometimes I want to be like, that is a bit weird, but it's one I respect about you. And it took me a long, long time to kind of be myself again. Well into adulthood. Before that, I was, an angry little fucker. Yeah, it's probably the saddest. I think it was just because I remember how happy I was, and then so quickly, absolutely hated everything about myself.
I hate that happened to you. The outside world sometimes can crush our dreams and make us feel bad about things that we're actually proud about ourselves and everything. And I think it's one of the worst things that can happen to people is when they start to really kind of doubt their true self, want to change that and everything like that. And then I think it is like very freeing when you get to the point where you're like, you know what? Screw it. I had to go through the same thing where it was like, I was very like a quiet, shy person, everything like that. I wanted to not ever be noticed, just be in the background.
Really?
Oh yeah, which I'm gonna do my story at some point. I'm gonna have one of my friends interview me, and it actually kind of goes into it. But there was like one day I was like, just done something silly that was fun with my friends, and it ended up going all over the school in a positive way, and everything. And I really thought to myself at that moment, I was like, my true self is, the guy that's hiding and doesn't want to be noticed and everything. I was like, he would have never done this, but the real me enjoyed it and had fun with it and everything like that. And I was like, screw it. Like, the people that don't like stuff, screw them. And the people that do, start collecting those people around you and everything like that. And then it's just kind of led me to the path. It was really weird. It was like one of those instant change sort of things where I was like, you know what? I'm all right. I'm an all right guy. I'm weird. I'm definitely weird. You know that. And, once I was like, I embraced it. It was like, okay. So I'm glad you were able to, because you're definitely back to being your true self.
Like I'm big dog.
Yeah, the big dog. It's like, I'm always like, big dog may want to take just a little bit of time to let people get to know him before you you wreck everything. But I'm really glad that big dog came out, and he's who he wants to be now.
I understand. And as you were saying before, you're so happy when you're authentically yourself. You're so happy when you're being silly and you surround yourself with people being silly. I don't care if you're cool. I don't care if you dress well. It's not exciting to be around someone that's cool. There's nothing worse than when you're being silly and then there's that one person you can tell they're judging you. I usually throw a fucking drink at them, but it just, yeah, it dampens the mood. And I think you've helped me definitely embrace my silly side for sure. Especially when we first started talking and we were just sending each other stupid videos and just dancing or whatever the fuck we used to do. It was fun. It was therapeutic.
That kind of leads us into the last question, which is, based on your life experience so far, what's the best advice you can give the people out there listening?
See, I, in every situation, realized that you could be wrong. Because there are so many times where I thought I was dead right. I thought that this person was toxic. I thought this and that. And only years later, I've gone, holy shit, you were the issue. Or going into an argument and making a dick out of yourself because you weren't listening, you were just arguing. I think never ever stop being the student. Because in every argument, 50% of the people in that argument are wrong, and 100% of the people believe they're right. Never be too good to learn. Because, even going into politics, the whole left-wing, right-wing thing, these people think that these people are the worst, and these people are the worst. In reality, they're both the worst, because they're both psychos that don't listen to anything, and they just want to argue. I just think it's important to, learn, listen. Even in an argument, I know it's hard, just realize that you could be wrong. You take notes, please, Brad. Yeah, and that's just kind of how I've learned. Even when I'm arguing with anyone, I do try and listen. And be grateful with what you have as well. I think it's important. Even if you're kind of fat, you're 5'6", and you got ginger beard and terrible vision, and you talk a lot, just be grateful. Because there can always be someone worse. Not heaps of people, but I'm sure there's some cunt that's got it worse than me.
I really appreciate that you took your time today, and I know it's late there, so
It is.
but I'm really glad to get to talk to you, and I'm really glad to share this with you.
Okay, Bradley. Well, it was nice talking to you. You say hi to everyone from me.
It's howdy, y'all.
Have you guys seen that the cat meme where he's like, howdy? No, never mind. That's Brad. I realize that no one has probably seen that except for probably me. All right. Miss you guys already. If you guys ever want to leave any thirsty comments about me, I would appreciate that. You got to take where you can get it. I'll even beg for a thirsty comment. I never get them.
I'm sure you're going to get some thirsty comments, Mr. Desmond.
Thirst away, motherfucker. All right. Bye.
I want to thank you all for listening today. If you enjoyed today's podcast, please subscribe and leave a 5-star review. Also, check out the video podcast at Handlebar ASMR on YouTube for extras.